Hey everybody, how's it going? Christian from Treasure Town here, and today we're going to be going through the top 10 nickel errors that are worth over $1,000. Now, this is sort of a kind of walk through the past of some incredible auction results. I think that it's really fascinating to learn more about mint errors. It's something that I haven't traditionally focused quite as much on my channel, but I think that it's a really fun part of collecting that often gets overlooked, and I want to speak with you about them today. So this is going to move a little bit away from the variety searching and more towards the errors. Some of these errors circulate for a long time, and surprisingly for how sort of messed up they are, they hang out for a while in circulation. Though most of these do get caught relatively frequently, especially, what I'm going to highlight is going to be some of the more drastic ones, just because it's super interesting how these things even came into existence. But I'm super excited to get into it. I've got a PowerPoint presentation, so we'll start off with number 10. And here we've got our 10th error. So these are just, as a review, going to be 10 really cool error coins that are mint errors, and they're going to all be nickels and worth over $1,000. So we're going to start here with this Multistruck two-piece bonded pair from the Philadelphia Mint 1998. There seems to have been a fair amount of crazy errors going on from 98 and 99. Maybe it's just kind of biased that I've been seeing them a bunch, but for whatever reason, it seems like there's some really cool errors that came out of that time. Now, the bonded pair means that, these coins were struck together. The force of the striking is just immense. So these coins get stuck together, the metal is fused, and as a result, we have this sort of coin here. But the interesting thing is, it's not just like it was bonded once, on one strike. Over here, it appears that there was even an additional strike that had happened to the first Planchet, and it does not look like, interestingly enough, that the reverse was there. So somehow maybe it was stuck in the die. Whatever happened, we already had a multi-struck coin, and then the problem got worse, and that resulted in a $2,040 sale at Heritage not too long ago. Then the next coin that we have here is a totally different situation. This coin was struck on a steel washer, and I guess, the washer looks like it was not too much smaller than the nickel itself. You can see a good amount of the design. Sometimes, I remember there was a bicentennial quarter that was struck on a washer that was less than a gram, and it was just a tiny one. This one, a little bit bigger. You get to see a lot of the coin. It's reminiscent of some of the pattern coinage kind of in the middle or late 1800s. They tried out a few hold coin designs, but never really did it in the States. And yeah, we have this coin. People paid $4,900 back in 2010 for this. There's not too many struck on washers coins, but it's, not a one-off. Sometimes it's like, I've never seen something like this that's been struck over before, but the washers every once in a while seems to turn up. And this one was preserved in Mint State 64. Somehow it was able to escape the mint. Then in 1887, we have this Offcenter coin, and I just think that it's spectacular because of how nice the quality of the coin is. It's Mint State 63, and it's been preserved really well. Maybe it was found shortly after leaving the mint. But I've noticed a lot of the older errors that are valuable are generally off-center ones, so I don't want to, only show those older errors. This one just seemed to be a really nice example with the devices. Super nice. I really like this kind of mini toning on the outside of the edge as well. It sold for $3,240. Then we have this bonded die cap here, and essentially two-piece, I'll explain it as best as I can, and it's interesting. You can see the reverse Monticello over here, but a die cap, so cap die errors is when the coin gets stuck in the top of the, to the top presser, if that makes sense, or the top kind of die, and it gets lifted up, struck again and again, and here it's being struck just tons of times. There's a big metal buildup, and it gets pushed out. So clearly the die is coming down and getting hammered many times. All these mini strikes over here, the metal, it's a lot of force, so the metal is basically broken out and pushed out around it. And the reverse, maybe it was there once, but seems to, it's not getting freshly struck each time on the reverse. So at the end of all of it, we've got quite a conglomeration or whatever you would call it, and it's a two-piece bonded coin, so I would assume that means that there's two pieces of this, but they're probably fused together because of the striking of the coin, the force behind that. This one sold for $3,840, and I apologize if I misexplained that coin. If you know better, please leave a comment below. We then have a saddle strike, which a triple saddle strike is a little bit rarer. I just thought that was really cool. $1,140. I really like how the lettering gets spread out. Maybe that's with the metal flow, because there's nowhere for it to really, it spreads out instead of being retained by the collars. So as the metal goes out, so does the lettering. Saddle strikes, to my knowledge, is when it gets struck basically by two. The coin almost gets, the planchet gets caught between two adjacent dies that are striking coins, and maybe this coin had already been struck, or however it happened. This is the result. And yeah, not extremely expensive, but I just thought very cool, cooler than some of the previous ones. There's also this buffalo nickel, which somehow was struck on a cent planchet, 1920. Mint State 65 red brown is remarkable that it's continued in this nice of a condition, and the buyers certainly thought so as well, paying $10,000 for it back in 2013. You see some wrong planchet errors, but this just seems a little bit rarer than that. Maybe they were striking less coins back then, and I don't think that there's any reason to believe quality control was that much worse in terms of this drastic of an error, so it's certainly significant. There's also this struck on a dime planchet clash dies. You can see where the dies have come together a little bit, where they did clash, all throughout. Jefferson over here, but then in the back, faint traces as well on the outside of the coin. Now it was also struck on a dime planchet at the same time, and it's clearly it's a larger strike than the dime. It probably thinned out quite a bit, but the planchet did, but it still was unable to contain all of it, and even cracked in some places, or appears to have almost cracked, although I think it did down there. As a result, this gained about $3,120 over what it should have been worth had there not been an error, coming in at an ultra cameo designation, which is deep cam, except that's how NGC does it. Then we also have this flip over double strike. So somehow on this coin, this 1908 V nickel, both sides were struck. You can see the outline of Liberty's hair over here. You can see parts of the V, that looks like the corn in her hair over here. It wasn't remarkably well preserved, but you can also see some of the dots back here. It's just all over the coin. Super interesting. Plus the date's totally messed up. You can see it. It's a shame that's XF details, but that means that was probably spent around a little bit before somebody noticed that there was something significantly wrong with it beyond it being circulated, and recently sold for $1,750. That's kind of what I like. It's a little bit more than an off-center error. It's really something interesting happened, and it's remarkable how well it retained the, it flipped over really nicely, as opposed to being flipping over and then having half of the second strike off-center, as you often would see. There's also this 1965 Jefferson nickel struck on a silver dime planchet. It's a great reminder that, while we stopped the dating of the coins for nickels, or for dimes and quarters, 64 and back was the silver ones. They still struck them in 65, they just backdated them to 64. So that's why it makes more sense that this nickel is dated 1965, normally never would have been silver, but it is because they were still striking 1964 dated silver dimes at the same time that they were striking the normal nickel-clad 1965 nickels. But there is somewhat of a transitional element to it as well, and it gained $6,000. Realized that amount when it came up for sale recently. Then our number one coin for the day is a similar transitional error. I just think that this is a little more significant, and it's a 1944p Jefferson nickel in NGC VF30 that was struck on a copper nickel planchet, meaning that, the war, when that was going on, these coins were being struck 35% silver, with the remainder being manganese, I believe, and then maybe a little bit of copper for the rest of it. I'm forgetting the exact details, and I should know it, but it's, I think, 9% manganese, 56%, I want to say copper. But the coin is the normal 75-25 split, copper nickel split. that is seen on the years prior to 1942 to 1945 and afterwards. And as a result, this was all the way back in 2001, so I'd imagine that the coin would have appreciated a bit. Sold for $6,900 in a very cool sale. And I just want to kind of spotlight some of the crazy things that go on at the mint. So many spanning the years, proof, non-proof, all sorts of different designs. Really enjoyed presenting this to you, and I'll look forward to doing a little bit more mint era coverage in the future as well. Thanks for watching the video. I'd encourage you to like, comment, and definitely subscribe to the channel and connect with me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I also have a website, treasuretownYT.com, where you should go so that you can learn more about coins as well as what's happening on the channel and possibly find a place to sell your coins and collectibles. I also want to talk about some of my other projects like coinmeltprice.com, which shows precious metals prices as well as the melt values of coins containing those precious metals, both US and world. I also have coinsmetalscards.com, which will develop into a full marketplace as well as a news source for coins, metals, cards, as the name might suggest. And then treasuretowncoins.com, which long-term will be my coin dealing entity separate from the channel. And lastly, whatsthegrade.com, which will be a stickering service for already certified collectibles where you can get a approval or verification of the grade on the holder. Hope you have a wonderful day, and I look forward to seeing you on some of my other videos.